You're listening to the CMD Project. I'm your host, Daniel Lackey. Today, we're going to do another solo episode, something quick, something short. Just want to dive into a topic here that's been kind of bothering me lately. I want to talk about what it is to be a man in 2025. I want to talk about why it's okay to be a man in 2025, why it's okay to be masculine, why it's okay to be formidable and dangerous. And when I say that, I'm not talking about being a bad man. I'm not talking about being controlling. I'm not talking about being arrogant. What I'm talking about when I say that it's okay to be a man is that it's okay to be strong emotionally, physically, mentally. It's okay to be a provider for your family, to take that leadership role. And, somewhere along the line, the world started confusing masculinity with toxicity. Everything these days that's masculine, it's labeled toxic, it's labeled sexist. Real masculinity, it's not about power, it's about purpose. It's about a man having his why. Because as men, we crave having a purpose. It's just the way we are wired. I know me, myself, I need a why. I need a purpose. If I'm not aiming towards a goal, I feel lost. I feel hopeless. It's when I have a ton of shit on my plate that I feel that I'm at my best. It's when I'm overwhelmed. That's when I operate like a well-oiled machine. It's when my back is against the wall. As a man, I feel alive. And so what I see is that a lot of young men, they're just lost. They're comfortable. And to be a man, it's about being comfortable, being uncomfortable, doing hard stuff, finding your purpose. And it's not entirely everybody's fault. It's not entirely anyone's fault in general. It's, we live in a very soft time, a very soft society where we have comfort at our fingertips 24/7, 365. We have an overabundance of shitty food. We have an overabundance of streaming services where you can just doom scroll for days and days. We are controlling the atmosphere in our home with our air conditionings, in our car with our air conditionings. We don't even sweat anymore. Straight from the car to the office, to the car, back to home, at your brisk, comfortable 68 degrees or whatever you have it at. And as a result, as a society, a lot of men have just become soft. That's exactly why as men, we've got to push back, because it's not toxic to take care of your family. It's not toxic to be a strong, good man. And I can tell you one thing that this world does not need more of is weaker men, weaker, insecure, angry men. It needs strong, confident, good men. And I'm not saying this from a place of superiority, as if I have everything figured out, as if I'm the man's man, because that's not the case. There's still a lot of things that I'm figuring out myself, still a lot of things that I'm working on myself to be a better man. But I have found my why. I've found a couple of whys that drive me, that keep me grounded. And I want to share 5 things today that I think can help out some young men out there, some lost men, on how to be a better man, how to fit that mold of a strong, confident, good man. Because I've been that young man that was lost, that was angry, that was insecure. I grew up without a father. We grew up, me and my brothers, in a single mother household. No one leading the way. We had to figure it out ourselves. We made a lot of mistakes. And honestly, we had no idea how to be men when we came of age. I mean, sure, we would find idols or people to look up to learn from. But it was more of like a piecemeal. We never had that one father figure in our life that could show us how to be men, that could lead us. And so as a result, when we were in our 20s, early 20s, late teens, whatever it may be, I know me, myself, I was an angry, insecure boy pretending to be a man. What I had done in my early 20s, I had created this sort of asshole persona, I guess, to protect myself. I thought that's what it was to be a man, to be strong, was to be controlling, to be arrogant, to be mean. This persona was one of, I don't need anything from anybody. I'll do everything myself. And I was closed off. I refused to look in the mirror and self-reflect. And now here I am in my mid-30s, and I realize that's not what being a man is at all. Being a man is being able to open yourself up. finding those to care for, to provide for, having a why, having a purpose. Back then I thought it was about money, status, what people thought of you, and just a bunch of bullshit that doesn't matter. I chased comfort, I chased validation. And I remember being about 24, 25 years old and waking up one day hungover. And at that time, I still felt like a boy. I didn't truly feel like a grown man. And then a few years went by and I found out my wife was pregnant. And for the very first time in my life, I had a why. And when my daughter was born, I remember for the first time in my life, had a purpose. It wasn't just all about me. It wasn't about Daniel and what can comfort me and what new nice thing can I provide for myself. My whole world was flipped upside down. Up to that point, it was all about me, myself, and I. I was selfish as could be. I had no one to worry about but myself. So when this little girl came into the world and I finally had a purpose, it freaked me out a little bit. I did a little self-reflecting for the very first time, and I realized, this isn't like getting a goldfish or buying a puppy. This is a lifelong commitment. There's no getting out of this. And I think that at that moment is when I took my first steps into manhood, when I really, truly started to feel like a man, like a real man inside. But when you're a young man and you have a child, you have one of two choices. You either buck up, stay around, provide for your family, love them, or you kick rocks and get out of there. And I see a lot of young men do that. And it's unfortunate, because having a child is the absolute greatest experience of my life. Being a father is the absolute greatest experience of my life. And that was the very first time in my life when I had an actual why. Why am I doing this? What is my purpose? And at that moment, it was to provide for her. And the one thing that I decided is that I wanted to do it to the best of my ability. I wanted to provide this little girl the life that I've never had, the life that I could have only dreamed of. I wanted to be there for her. I never wanted her to feel like she wasn't loved, or I never wanted her to feel lost. I wanted her to always feel like daddy was there. And this is where I read a book. I started reading around that time. I really started diving into books because I knew I had to figure something out. Working for the man wasn't working for me. And I read this line out of I think his name's Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And there's a specific line in that book, and I do this often. I take one or two lines out of a book, and it just really resonates with me. But it said something along the lines of, poor parents use their kids as an excuse as to why they can't be rich. Rich parents use their kids as the reason of why they have to get rich or be rich. So for example, someone with a poor mindset or a victim mentality mindset might say, well, it's because of my kids that I can't make more money. It's because of my kids that I can't do this. As to where someone with a winning mentality, someone who's going to make it and going to be successful, they're going to look at their kids and they're going to say, well, it's because of my kids that I have no option other than to be successful. And that really resonated with me. That really stuck with me. And I used that. And then I started implementing other things into my life. And here we are almost 6 years later. And life is absolutely amazing. It's fantastic. But it's all because I chose to self-reflect. I chose to be a good man. I chose to be a good father. And of the 5 things that helped me out today that I've implemented into my life to be a better man are, number 1, waking up early, just going to bed at a decent time, not drinking alcohol on the regular. Sure, going out occasionally, having some cocktails with friends, that's okay. But doing it every weekend, doing it all the time, is absolutely out of the question. You have to wake up early. You can't sleep till 9, 10, 11 o'clock every single day. Sure, sleeping in from time to time is nice, but wake up at 6, 7 in the morning. And, I'm not the greatest morning person. I wake up around 6:30 in the morning. But that gives me enough time to get my day started. It gives me enough time to wake up, to feel fresh. And, the earlier you wake up, the more control you take back of your day. And honestly, the better you feel. And number 2 is once you wake up, do something, do anything, whether it's make your bed or take a shower, take the trash out, cook yourself some breakfast. Just do something that you don't want to do to get your day started on the right foot, by doing something proactive. And this takes me back to making the bed. Although I'm not going to lie, I don't make my bed every day, but I do understand the concept behind it. Because when I was a young man, I used to say, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Why am I going to make a bed? I'm just going to crawl back into it at the end of the day. But I finally understand now as a man that making your bed in the morning, it's for the sole purpose of doing something productive right as soon as you wake up to get your day started off on the right foot. And, doing something off a rip right as soon as you wake up, something productive, it's powerful, it's mental, it rewires your brain to be a productive person over time. It builds those residual good habits, because we all know building bad habits is super easy. Stopping at McDonald's on your way home and getting 4 cheeseburgers and a large fry, super easy. Those good healthy habits, those are the ones that are difficult to build. Eating a salad and lean protein for dinner, turning the TV off and picking up a book to learn something educational, to teach yourself something. These are hard habits, and by starting your day off on the right foot, it gradually makes it easier to build those healthy habits in your life, which in turn, I believe, lead to you being a better man. And from there, going into number 3, I think that every man should have a hobby. To take that even further, I think those hobbies should be difficult. I think they should push you physically, mentally. I think they should force you to face yourself in some aspect. For me personally, those hobbies are combat sports. I love boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, grappling, just getting out there and pushing myself. But it doesn't have to be combat sports. I understand some people don't want to be punched or kicked or risk injury because you have to work the next day, and I fully understand that. But it can be anything, running a 5K, doing a marathon, cycling, rock climbing, just anything. Anything that pushes you, that forces you to be better as a man, because when we do hard things and when we push ourselves, I truly believe that we get better. And not only that, you feel great after accomplishing something, after just putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation. And speaking of doing something hard as a man, number 4, some people find more difficult than anything, and that's simply looking in the mirror, calling yourself out. If you're not doing what you're supposed to, being able to look yourself in the eye and say, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Come on, pull it together. Because most men, they're not lacking strength. What they're lacking is honesty. If you're slacking, say it. If you're lying to yourself, own it. Because you can't fix what you won't face. And self-reflection, it's not weakness. It's how you fix your mistakes and how you get better. So that's number 4 right there, is just own your shit, look yourself in the eye and call yourself out. And number 5 is have a group of friends, have a group of men. Because, we can all be men here and say, yeah, my wife's my best friend. But at the end of the day, they're not going to understand what being a man is like another group of men are. If you don't have a group of men around you, find one, create one. Again, a lot of times you can find those by doing the hobbies. Obviously, you find something, you do it, you enjoy it. You're around other people, you're around like-minded individuals, you have something in common, boom, you have a core of people around you. Because as a man, you need a group of men around you that call you on your bullshit and pull you up. Remember, iron sharpens iron, guys. And that is the 5 things that I try to implement into my life to make me be a better man. That, these things make me feel like a better man. And to the young men out there, the ones that are feeling lost, that are feeling directionless, I've been in your shoes. I have been you. I have felt lost. I have felt directionless. I have felt hopeless. I've spent long nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'm ever going to pull my shit together. I've been angry at the world. I've shut down. I've closed people out. So I fully understand where you guys are coming from. But remember, you're not broken. You're just not built yet. You have to take the first steps towards being a man. First thing is you've got to find your why. You have to find a purpose. As men, that's how we're wired. So find your why and start with these 5 steps. Try to implement them. And I guarantee you're going to start feeling a little better.